Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys use the power of the internet to watch random movies that suggested them because there's just too much stuff. And with me, as always, is the amazing, the incredible, the mighty, the incredible, the stop-motion skeleton to my stop-motion Cyclops, the Kyle Mulford.
You
And I'm
know,
doing Saturn. How you doing, Kyle?
I was just sitting here minding my own business, and then someone pulls me off my planet, brings me to theirs, and then starts hunting me down. I mean, what is that?
That's rude.
What did we watch this week?
We watched 20 Million Miles to Earth.
Oh my god, I thought I was on Earth.
Oh, okay. Well, it does take place on Earth, but it's about something coming to Earth from 20 million miles away.
Oh, and what do you want? Just get into this?
Yeah, I think, what year? Yeah, let's start with the facts.
Just the facts, ma'am. This movie came out in 1957. It was directed by Nathan Duran, and we'll get to the main star of this movie in just a second here, but it was produced by Charles H. Schneer for Columbia Pictures, and he produced a lot of this one guy's films. He wasn't a director, but it was this guy by the name of Ray Harryhausen. Um,
Yeah, so we've done, I think we did what, the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad?
Yeah, which was the film right after this one done by Harryhausen. He did have another one that was uncredited for visual effects on for like in between these two, but this was basically his next film that he created all of the stop motion for. And this is actually Harryhausen's final black and white film, I think. And it's also his final one taking place in modern times, because then you get into the stuff that most people know him for, which is the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts, and then his final film before retiring, Clash of the Titans in '81. So I think he just decided to get away from the modern times, I guess.
Oh, yeah, and that way you could probably do more stuff, because, like, I think his movies before that, if I remember correctly, only had, like, one or two monsters. Although, I'm not sure, did he work on War of the Worlds? I don't know.
I don't know if he did the effects for Earth versus the Flying Saucers.
Okay, I know that one for sure.
Yeah, and then he had one that was like the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms or something like that, and it was just a what is a six-armed octopus. I was watching an interview and they were talking about how it had six arms, and the director was like, no one will ever notice, and nobody really noticed because Harryhausen's amazing, so he just made it look good and people fed into it.
But yeah, so with any Harryhausen movie, you kind of know what you're getting into, and I think that's part of the fun. And none of them are, I don't think any of them are particularly long.
No, and because a lot of them are not about the script really at all. It's more about his effects, and that's why you call them Ray Harryhausen films, even though they're directed by someone else, because the star of the show is his effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, usually with classic films, I don't like when they colorize them, but I guess that Harryhausen always wanted his films in color, and this was his final black and white one. But this one, they said, was filmed in black and white because they couldn't afford, the budget didn't allow for filming this in color. So they actually, 5 years after the director died, so in 2007, they Harryhausen had it colorized, and they put the color and the black and white version on a new DVD release.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting. He wanted his films in color, and they just couldn't afford to, because he did a lot of what was considered B movies back then, the monster movies. But that being said, this film is 80% on Rotten Tomatoes with 10 critics and 55% with 2,937 users. And let's get in the movie and see if we agree with the 80% or the 55%.
Did you watch the color version or the black and white version?
I watched the black and white version. That's the only one I saw on the streaming. And we should probably mention where this is streaming.
I also watched the black and white version.
And now I can't actually remember. I watched things on so many different streaming services that
I think this was like on Tubi.
Yeah, it was on Tubi. I think that's the only streaming service it's on right now. So
Yeah.
You can find it on Tubi. But anyway, the basic premise of this movie is some astronauts come back from Venus. They crash into the
The ocean off the
into
coast
the
of
sea,
Sicily.
yeah, the sea or the ocean or whatever off the coast of Sicily. And one thing to note is this was filmed in Italy because Harryhausen wanted to vacation there because he'd never been there before.
Nice.
They were going to film this in Chicago and go off of Lake and have them crash into Lake Michigan or whatever. And he's like, I've never visited that part of Europe before, so let's go film this in Italy.
Nice.
So he was the Adam Sandler of his day.
I mean, yeah, I know sometimes that people will take roles because they get to go to a certain place, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we opened with some effects, which were kind of shoddy with the rocket crashing into the sea, and there's some Italian fishermen out there, two men and a little boy, and they go out and examine the wreck and pull a
In my
couple.
script, it's not my script. In my notes, I referred to them as the Mario Brothers.
My favorite was the little boy. What was his name? Pepe.
Pepe, yes.
And he just wanted a hat from Texas so he could shoot the banditos.
Yeah, he just wanted to be a cowboy.
I want to be a cowboy. I want the hat. I want the hat like from Texas. And I love so they basically get a couple astronauts out there, and that's how you get introduced to the almost a doctor. Um,
Yeah.
and the love interest of one of the astronauts, and another astronaut dies, and then Pepe finds on the beach later this tube with a cocoon in it, and he takes it to Doctor
I
what
he takes it to
Leonardo.
Brian Dennehy and
Right,
Wilford Brimley from the film Cocoon.
right. Yes. and and an old man emerges. Oh no,
Yes,
the young man emerges, right?
right, right.
Uh and he takes it to this doctor. I think his name's Leonardo, and he's got he's got a
He's like a zoologist, so he's all about finding and taking animals. He's got like birds, and he wants to say, "Hey, like, can you give me $200 and I'll give you this animal that I definitely have wrapped up in this coat?"
yeah. He's like, "Hey kid, can I buy that from you for two?" And he goes, "How much?" And 200 lire. Is that enough to buy buy a hat from Texas? Yes, it is, boy. So then we get cut to the Pentagon, and the U.S. military and all that is going, "Oh, our ship should have crashed somewhere around here." So they show up in Italy,
Yep,
and
and our astronaut is what's his name, is recovering in the hospital, meets a sexy lady. Turns out sexy lady is almost a doctor. They help each other, they fall in love, but of course that's not the real reason we're here. The real reason we're here is for whatever's stuck in that mysterious goo.
the first thing you get is it hatching, and the love interest is actually the daughter. Is the daughter or the granddaughter of the
The daughter, or like the granddaughter of the zoologist.
yeah. So they're standing over the cocoon at his trailer, and you see your first bit of good stop motion there, which I thought was impressive. This thing hatching out of it. It's like a little lizard man thing.
Yeah, it does seem kind of familiar. Starts out like the size of like an action figure, moves around,
Yeah,
goes, oh, look at this little thing.
it's so cute. So they put it in a cage out back, and then the next morning, like they look at it, and it's twice its size.
They're like, oh, it's bigger. We got to take this to the zoo in Rome. This could be the most exciting discovery ever. And of course, they leave, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. We need this. What was in this canister? Then astronaut finds out Pepe did it. They don't want to take his hat because he's paid good money for that hat. So they're on the trail of the doctor, the daughter, or the granddaughter, and the monster.
Yeah, so then the conflict comes in with the military just wants to destroy it. The astronaut wants to capture it alive because they need to find out how it works, because the other astronaut actually ended up dying from a disease they caught on Venus, but like they want to know more about it by dissecting this creature, and so hunting it down. And then the doctor and his granddaughter, almost a doctor, also get involved, and
And then every time this thing starts getting bigger, next thing you know, it's the size of a dog. Next thing you know, it's the size of a human. Then it starts going off into like the field and attacks a dog, attacks a farmer.
Well, and here's what I found great about this is that it's not attacking these things. It's defending itself against these things because I don't think it kills anything. The puppy's still alive. I don't know if there's any point in the movie that it actually kills anybody or anything.
Well, it kills a lot of people at the in the finale when they're after it breaks out of the zoo. It definitely kills that elephant.
Well, that's true. It does kill the elephant. But
That's definitely closer to. It's not necessarily malicious on purpose. It's more like,
no, if
hey, I'm in a strange new place. I don't know what's going on.
yeah, and that's the thing that I like about it is that it's just going, I just was pulled off my planet and I just need some sulfur to eat. So that's what it eats is sulfur, a mineral that would be found on Venus. And it's not looking to kill anything. It just wants to go to the sulfur mines and eat to its heart's content. Or actually, no, it doesn't have a heart because they eventually catch it with an electric net. And
After they try shooting it, it was like, well, it doesn't have a heart, so that doesn't really matter.
yeah, when they start dissecting it, they're or not dissecting, but like kind of experimenting on it. They find it doesn't have a heart or lungs. It just has a series of tubes through its body that like pumps things through. Which when they describe them like veins,
Maybe.
but it just doesn't go to a heart, I guess.
I don't know. Some animals are weird.
Yeah, but there was a the farmer scene I thought was really cool because it gets backed into a corner and attacks a dog, but doesn't end up killing it. And then it comes out and the farmer stabs it with a pitchfork, and then we get a claymation fight between a claymation person and the monster. And I was like, that was really impressive. I mean, for 1957, I was like, that's pretty awesome.
It's impressive now. Animation is hard.
Yeah, and especially the way that Harryhausen did animation. And I know that when we talked about Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, we gushed about this too. But I don't know how you watch a Harryhausen film and not just gush about his technique and his attention to detail and all of that.
Yeah, he's definitely a true master of stop motion. I think everyone who's ever been interested in stop motion definitely owes a debt to him and his work. I'm sure, like, I guarantee you, Leica Studios would not be around if it weren't for Ray Harryhausen or anyone who's ever made a stop motion film, at least in the
Oh,
US.
yeah, for sure. And he inspired so many people, like Tim Burton, probably the people at Leica, probably who's the Wallace and Gromit crew?
Yeah, Aardman, yeah.
Aardman Studios probably got a lot of inspiration from Harryhausen. And it's not like Harryhausen was the first because he himself was inspired by the 1933 King Kong when he was a kid.
Yeah, he worked
And
with Willis OBrien as an assistant, who was the effects master on that.
yeah, so not as a kid, but as a young man.
Yeah.
I watched an interview. It was actually Tim Burton interviewing him, and he said, "Yeah, when I watched King Kong, I didn't know how it was done, but that kind of sparked my interest on doing this stuff." But then he became the gold standard for stop motion, and I don't know if anybody will ever top what he did for stop motion.
Yeah, definitely a true artist at the top of his field.
I will say that Leica Studios, if you are a fan of stop motion, just they are phenomenal themselves. What they do with their movies.
Yeah, what I really like about them is that they're really good at sort of combining different types of effects to work at the same time. I know, like they've done some 2D animation mixed in with stuff, and what's also really nice about Leica, if you get any of their movies on like DVD or Blu-ray, they've got some great special features detailing how they did it. And just like when Coraline was released in 3D, that was really different, really cool because it was designed to 3D, and 3D stop motion is just wild. And then of course I think like Kubo and the two strings with like the skeleton scene,
Yeah.
because that skeleton is giant. Or like there's a scene where like Kubo goes down and sees a giant eyeball. It turns out that eyeball Kubo is like tiny, and the eyeball is like a bowling ball size. Just
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And when you watch those behind the scenes specials and then even stuff on the Harryhausen things, you realize that it really is like one frame, move it a millimeter, one frame, move it a millimeter, I don't even know how you even finish a film when you do stop motion the way they do.
Very slowly.
Very, very slowly. Because, yeah, you think they've got to have some sort of shortcut on this. But even with the Leica stuff, you watch them and you go, oh my God, you're really doing this one frame at a time, aren't you?
I mean, if anything, I mean, the film they used is turned from like physical film, like Harryhausen would use, to digital. Or what's nice about digital is that there's different programs. One's called like Dragon Frame, and I think is a pretty well known one. And with that one, you can see each individual like frame as you go on, and then you can take a step back and like play them in an order and kind of see what you've been done so far.
Yeah, and they're actually making it more accessible for people because my daughters use on my phone. I have Stop Motion Studio, which is a free download. They have a pro version, but there's a free download that you basically, yeah, you just put you set your phone somewhere and set up your shot, and then you just snap a picture for each frame that you of your movie, and then it automatically plays through all the pictures, and then you can download it as a movie. So it's pretty cool, and a lot easier than what they had to do with Harryhausen. Which, I mean, we could go into it, but you could also go back and listen to our Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, where we got into all of the his technique that he created that's called dynamation, which is just phenomenal and painstakingly, detailed.
Yeah, another thing. I think I might have talked about it before, but there's a special feature on like the King on one of the King Kong DVD releases with the 1933 version, where Peter Jackson is obviously a huge fan of that film, and they did something called the Lost Spider Pit sequence, where there's a sequence of the film that was animated by Willis OBrien, and they tried to recreate it using as close a techniques as possible that they could to the original. It's like, wow, this is insane. And it's a really cool behind the sneak peek of what we think was probably close enough to what Willis O'Brien did on that film.
Yeah, I can't even imagine trying to recreate anything some of those past stop motion masters did. I don't even know if I'd have the patience for it. But back to the movie we're talking about. There really isn't, like I said, there's not much to this movie. The romance doesn't really matter. The dialogue is wooden at best, but you're following this monster, and you do get the Italians going after them, like the mayor of Italian Town. He's like, take that thing out, and they come through with it. I think at one point they have a flamethrower tank. So
They've got tanks, it does the monster attacks, it does what it does, right? They throw the military, they throw everything at it. It's got this, and then of course it climbs like on top of the Colosseum, it destroys a few things, it fights an elephant, this
yeah,
is what you can see.
like you said, you have the elephant, which is it's being held at the zoo because the old man is the zoologist, and so he's like, oh, just hold it there, and they have like electricity going through its whatever, like just through its body, because it keeps it in a coma like stasis, and so they can study it. Well, some idiot drops the equipment and it turns it off, and the monster gets out, and now it's like the size of an elephant. So and there was one thing about the when they had the real elephant, Harryhausen wanted a bigger elephant, and they couldn't find one, so they got an elephant handler, someone to play the elephant handler who was only like 4'6".
Nice.
So it made the elephant look bigger. Um, Harryhausen actually has a cameo in the film as a man feeding the elephant.
Cool.
So, but that was another cool fight, was the elephant and the monster through the streets of Rome, because this zoo is in Rome, and they're fighting, and yeah, and then once that fight gets done, then the military's chasing him down still, and then they're chasing him with rocket launchers and flamethrower tanks till he gets into the Colosseum, and then much like King Kong, he climbs to the top of it and is like just getting shot at, and again, it's just trying to defend itself. It's just being cornered, and finally, they shoot the building out from under it, and it falls to its death. And then the astronaut gets the almost doctor. The end. Happily ever after.
It was beauty that killed the beast. The end.
And like I said before, one of the things I like about it is you have a lot of sympathy for the monster. And that's really great because the effects are the showcase of the film. And like I said, all it is just something that was taken from its own home and planted here where everything thinks it's a monster and wants to attack it and kill it, and so it just defends itself. And you can see in the detail of the monster itself, you get that sympathy which you wouldn't get if it weren't for the masterful hands of Harryhausen on the creature effects.
Yeah, I mean, there's a phrase called animation is acting one frame at a time. And you do, like, it definitely, it's one thing to get something to move. It's another thing to give it a personality as it moves. And that's really what animation is all about.
Yeah, and you see this like always kind of backing away from the fight, and just to give you that idea of, oh my gosh, it's, the poor thing is just being attacked. It just doesn't know what to do. So, but
So would you recommend this movie?
as a Harryhausen fan, yes, I would absolutely recommend this.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
definitely recommend this too.
I am surprised I never really knew about this movie. I guess his earlier stuff I didn't really know. I grew up in the 80s, so I watched Clash of the Titans over and over, and I knew about Jason and the Argonauts and Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and I had seen those a little bit because they were the same style as Clash of the Titans. But to see some of this early stuff where it's just the single monster that he puts so much into, I really put it up there with some of his other films, just as far as the stop motion animation goes.
Yep.
So, like I said, the birth scene coming out of the cocoon was just phenomenal. So, I if you're a fan of stop motion at all, I get on Tubi and stream this. It's free. Tubi is free. You can find it on your smart TVs, your PlayStations, your Xboxes, your phone, your tablet,
Your whatevers.
your whatevers. Go and check this out. Don't watch it for the story or the acting because that's not there a lot.
That's
But
not the point of the movie.
watch it for the effects and you'll just be blown away.
Yep. So now I move on to double features. So what would make a good double feature with this one? For me, I think a good double feature would be Black and White Harryhausen. So I'd do this one and then The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which is about a sea monster attacking. Who doesn't love that?
Yeah, and I would actually like to see that now because like I said, I'm not familiar with Harryhausen's earlier stuff, and now I'd like to see some more of that. So that would be a good double feature. I am going to go with the 1933 King Kong, just because that's where Harryhausen, got some of his original inspiration to do this kind of thing, and it's got a very similar feel to it. I think King Kong will attack more, but it's again a creature that was taken out of its habitat of Skull Island and brought into New York, and it's like getting attacked. It just loves Fay Ray. That's all.
Yeah.
It just wants to get the girl. So
Yep.
I think this and King Kong would be a good double feature. So
Definitely.
let's move on to spinning the wheel here, and we'll just go.
Just pick anything.
We'll pick anything, and 70% or better, and spin it.
Spin, 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 spin.
Oh, and we've got something that you might actually have heard of.
Oh,
Against,
really? Okay. Here, read the description. Let me guess.
against his father Odin's will, the mighty Thor, a powerful but arrogant warrior god, recklessly reignites an ancient war. Thor is cast down to earth and forced to live among humans as punishment. Once here, Thor learns that learns what it takes to be a true hero when the most dangerous villain of his world sends the darkest forces of Asgard to invade Earth. And I
Ah,
I did not just say the title of the movie 3 times in that description.
I'm thinking it's being John Malkovich.
Yes, exactly.
No,
Thor,
it's Thor.
Thor, it is the first Thor movie. So that'll be interesting to go back to see that because I have not watched that in quite a while. See
I
how it
haven't watched
holds
it since it was in theaters.
see how it holds up after 17,000 more Marvel movies after it.
Yep.
But until then, you can find us on the interwebs at Twitter at AwesomeKM.
And at Noah_Saturn, SATERN. And until then, I'm gonna send my stop motion skeletons to attack Kyle.
And that's okay. I'll just send Jason after him.
Oh no. Alrighty. Bye bye.